We were totally fooled.
It was all very real. It was very, very real.
I didn't realize how severe it was. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, I was just dead.
That was the moment our whole lives changed.
Welcome to Something's Killing Me. I'm B.D. Wong. Tonight, we delve into a rare and disturbing medical disorder that has deceived doctors and nurses for decades. This strange affliction is tricky to detect unless medical staff has been trained to spot the warning signs. Now, experts in this field wonder if the condition, which can be life-threatening, is more common than once believed. This is a story about hope and one family's struggle with a mysterious and potentially fatal disorder.
Hope is brilliant. She's a chemist. She was creative, she was smart, she was talented. Hope did normal things kids do. She went to church. She played in the band. She enjoyed time with her friends. Hope met Fabian when they were in college. He was one of the star football players, and she was in the band.
She was fun to be with. She had a good sense of humor. We just dated, and it just evolved, and that just led to marriage. We're a young couple, doing the best we can.
It's easy to look back now and why didn't you question it more?
I never saw it coming. There are no words to describe that turning moment.
They all started back in 2000. One day, she had told me that she had a bump in her arm. She complaining about it. And she said it got bigger. And then she let me know it was a tumor.
She had Ewing sarcoma, which was an aggressive bone cancer, and that's what was in her arm.
I mean, I was in shock. When you hear the word cancer, you think death.
She was leaving behind a husband and 3 kids.
And after 6 months of radiation and therapy, she had said the cancer is gone. We even had a cancer survivor party, and it was a whole production.
There were balloons, there was a band. We fed well over 100 people. It was a celebration.
And not 2 years after her cancer survivor party, she said the cancer came back. It spread to her lungs and brain.
It was pretty profound, you know, and you're just like, how in the heck do you beat this? She was treated in Dallas. Ultimately, she beat this monster. If you beat it once, you get a big party. If you beat it twice, you get a really big party. Hope had a bucket list, and on that bucket list was to skydive.
Hope, what are you fixing to do?
I'm fixing to jump out of an airplane.
And going to a party.
Yeah, big party.
Dropping in on party. Not too many people get to drop in on their party, you know that?
Yeah, not too many people get to fight cancer for
Yeah, that's
4 or 5
true,
years
too.
in a row.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I earned it.
In 2008, Hope told us the cancer was back. She told us that it was in her lungs, it was in her bones, and that she was tired of fighting it.
This third time, I honored her in that respect that, okay, well, you're ready to go. I'm not ready for you to go. And, but I finally accepted it.
She went to multiple cemeteries until she found the one that had the perfect view that she thought would be a great place for her kids to be at peace and to go visit. Hope and I went together to the funeral home. We sat and cried and bickered and laughed and made her plans. Chose prayer cards, talked about the kind of flowers that she wanted. She wanted doves released at her funeral. Paul and I were visiting frequently with a mental health counselor to deal with both the grief of the illness and the pending grief of losing Hope.
We prepared the kids for the worst. We sat all three of them down, and we told them that Mom was not going to be around no more.
That the cancer had come back, and this time there was nothing they could do to save Mommy's life. The local television station ended up hearing about her story, and they came out and interviewed Hope.
I'm terminally ill and have been fighting cancer for the last 8 years now.
Hope's battle with brain, lung, and bone cancer leaves her frail and weak.
Look here, my daughter.
But even though she was dying of cancer, her only concern was her own daughter.
Hope had a daughter that was diagnosed at about 10 months with a very rare, very aggressive form of cystic fibrosis. She was terminally ill. From birth up until 3.5 years, it was around the clock. Your special formulas, changing them, starting up tubes, medications every so many hours.
I didn't know how I was going to take care of the kids, especially the youngest, and the daily routine of taking care of her and the other kids at the same time.
Here is this woman who is just facing so many challenges, and she has these 3 beautiful children. She seemed almost superhuman.
She was close to her death. We called in a priest for her last rites.
When we were preparing to say our goodbyes to Hope, something very unexpected occurred.
What happened next, I did not expect. Something so surprising, I couldn't believe it was true.
Hope had been in the hospital receiving pain management. Susan ended up getting a phone call from a doctor, and he asked for Susan's help.
The doctor's looking for any past history of Hope's cancer.
I said, well, you know, all her stuff's at my house. I'm pretty sure I can figure this out. When I returned home, I went through her drawers looking for prescriptions for anything like that that I could find that might have the physician's name. I found no prescription bottles. I found nothing that would give me information as to who her physicians were. I was kind of at a loss because it had to be somewhere. I had to be able to find who the doctors were that she'd been seeing all this time.
I got a call from Susan saying, hey, do you have access to your insurance? So I gave her my password and username.
When I looked through that information, I couldn't find charges on Hope. I'm not seeing CAT scans, I'm not seeing MRIs, I'm not seeing oncology visits. I'm looking back 1.5 years, 2 years, I'm not seeing it. There had to be another explanation for why I couldn't find this stuff. That was the moment our whole lives changed.
Hope was on her 3rd bout of cancer.
While Hope was in the hospital for pain management, a physician asked me for help in gathering the names of some of the oncologists that had treated Hope. I went through boxes and I went through her drawers looking for medical files. There were no oncology bills, prescriptions, MRIs, CAT scans, any kind of medical billing in those records that would indicate that Hope had ever seen any medical professionals. At this point, I'm in disbelief. The morning after I searched through all of Hope's things, I went early to the hospital to speak with Hope's oncologist, who had asked me to give her the names of the doctors. And we went behind closed doors, and I told him I found no evidence of any treatment on my daughter. I have found no records. I found no prescriptions.
Here is a woman who for 8 years believed that her daughter was battling cancer. believed that every time her daughter won that battle, she would only face another challenge, be re-diagnosed. And suddenly, looking at these computer records, it's dawning on her that her daughter may have been lying.
I had a lot of schooling in social psych therapy arts, and I told him, I believe she may have Munchausen's, which is a disorder where a person can create such fabulous lies that they're completely believable. I was aware of the disorder. I'd just never seen it.
The doctor told Susan that he'd be lying if he said he didn't have the same concerns.
Munchausen is actually a mental health issue where a person will either fake an illness or create illness in themselves to get medical attention. So it's an attention-seeking behavior, but specifically to get medical care.
After I spoke with the oncologist, I gathered my wits about me for a few minutes before I went in to see Hope. I said, Hope, I believe there is no evidence that would suggest that you have or have ever had cancer. Is this correct? And she nodded her head. I realized my daughter just confessed that she had fabricated the last 8 years.
How can she fake all these 3 cancers? Are you kidding me? I mean, this is just crazy.
I went deep into anger. I was angry at Hope. I was angry at God, and it was such a shock that anybody, anywhere in this world could fabricate something to that extreme.
You think, how in the world? Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Complete shock. There are no words to describe that turning moment.
It just didn't add up. She was going to a doctor for 8 years, constant back and forth. It made no sense.
It was so real. She was able to give details about different types of chemotherapy, different types of radiation. She studied well. She rehearsed for her role.
They are really good liars, whether it's creating the idea that they have cancer and shaving their head, whether it's creating symptoms that results in surgery, like serious surgery on themselves.
I mean, just like a regular cancer patient going through chemo. She had lost her hair, she had lost her eyebrows.
She would have patches of hair gone. She would make trips to the emergency room in an ambulance. It was all very real. It was very, very real.
Susan said that she always offered to go with her daughter to all these appointments, and that her daughter always had different responses.
She would tell me, I really need to save your time available for that when I really, really need you. Or it would really be a lot more helpful if you would stay with the kids today.
And I never went with her to treatment. She always said no. Save your days when you really need it.
We were totally fooled. There was no sign. She was so good at it that we never noticed.
So Munchausen is like an addiction, so that when you get that attention, you're going to get a release of chemicals, neurochemicals, brain chemicals, that will cause feelings of pleasure. So it's those feelings of pleasure that is created from getting that medical care and the medical attention.
Totally blindsided by the fact that someone we raised could have the capacity to mentally create this environment of sickness and cancer and dying in order to get attention.
She loved attention. That was her thing. When Hope got attention, she was a whole different person. She was happy, social, just a happy, happy person.
If we look back now, and why could we not have seen these signs?
So, as the realization started hitting Fabian and Susan and the family members about the lies that Hope had told, it started to make them question what else in the past was true, what was not. Hope had also convinced her family that she had gotten a PhD in chemistry. She told her husband, Fabian, that she was taking both online courses and actually going to school. And he said she would disappear every Tuesday and Thursday night, saying she was off to class. Now he has no idea where she was really going. But after about a year, she announced that she'd gotten her doctorate. But Hope had convinced him that because she was taking both online courses and also going to classes, she was able to do it in a lot less time. And it turns out none of it was true. It was hard for them to imagine that everything that had happened over the last 8 years wasn't real. Hope had been pregnant with twins, twin girls. She had picked out their names already, Alexandria and Alexia. And within 2 weeks of treatment, she calls her mother and announces to her that she had lost the babies.
It was heartbreaking. We sobbed uncontrollably for a while over that loss. I grieved those babies a long time. A long, long time. Until I figured out they probably weren't real either.
She had an urn that sat on the mantle of the family's North Fort Worth home that held the cremations of those twin daughters. And she had had this elaborate tattoo done on her back.
She had decided that after everything she had gone through, she had earned her wings. And she wanted to have wings tattooed onto her back. There are 5 stars. Those stars represent her 3 living children and the 2 babies she lost. They're memorialized on her.
It's amazing what people have done in these cases to fabricate and lie to their family.
The family couldn't understand how could she have done all that.
And of course, that was just the beginning.
Hope, a married mother of 3 living in Fort Worth, Texas, faked having cancer for 8 years, convincing her friends and family members that she was going to die.
Hey! It was a roller coaster ride, going from Hope's dying to she's not dying to she's never had cancer.
It was a disaster emotionally. I couldn't understand how she could tell the kids she had cancer and make them believe that she was gonna die. It's something that a monster would do to toil with kids' emotions.
Once Hope confirms that the entire cancer situation has been a fabrication, you really start to question everything you've been told. Every single thing you've been told. That includes medical conditions that surrounded my grandchildren.
Susan started wondering maybe she was making my youngest one sick.
If Hope's not sick, is her daughter really sick? When the youngest was born, she didn't have an easy start in life. Before she was a year old, she was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. She had a feeding tube. She had oxygen.
Just constant breathing treatments 3-4 times a day.
In my memory, she was in the hospital more than she wasn't. Even when she wasn't in the hospital, she was on tons of medications. It was obvious that Hope's daughter had been sick. I'd been there when doctors came in with test results. I still wanted to know that the base premise was true. Does she have cystic fibrosis?
Susan is the one who ended up calling her granddaughter's doctor and letting that doctor know that her daughter had Munchausen syndrome and had been faking cancer for years. She also let that doctor know that she feared that she may have also been faking the illness in her youngest granddaughter.
I knew that it was time to call Child Protective Services.
CPS ordered Hope and Fabian to bring the little girl back to the hospital for a sweat test to prove whether she in fact had cystic fibrosis or did not.
I thought there was no chance that Hope would ever hurt my youngest one. It never crossed my mind.
In this test, what they basically do is take a patch and they put it on the child's arm and they measure the amount of sodium or salt that's in the girl's sweat. If you have a high level of sodium, that, along with other symptoms, can be an indicator that you have cystic fibrosis. And both this nurse and this child life specialist reported that Hope had called her daughter over and started to touch the bandage.
She was trying to tamper with her test.
And they ordered her to get away from the girl.
She was freaking out. I look back, she was nervous, twitching. It was just weird. A nervousness about her that I've never seen before. Like everything was crashing down. So they touched her, and they came back negative for cystic fibrosis. And that just started the whole storm.
I can't believe she did this. How could she do this? She's flat crazy to do this.
And of course, that was just the beginning.
As the picture becomes clearer and all of their worst fears are confirmed, it's like being hit with a sledgehammer.
And look here, my daughter.
For a week, I was dead inside. There's no emotion to describe it. I wasn't depressed, I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, I was just dead. When I look back at all the operations, all the unnecessary medications, all the things that robbed her childhood, I just felt so horrible inside. All this stuff was not needed.
Medical child abuse used to be called Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but essentially that's where either a parent, usually the mother, will present the child as having symptoms that they really don't have. And it may even progress to causing actual illness in the child. They're not crazy. They know what they're doing. It's not a psychiatric disorder. It's just abuse.
It's so shocking because she was a great mom. She was an excellent mom before I found out everything she did.
She was very devoted. I always felt like Hope was devoted beyond almost capability.
When their family and friends look at them, they see a parent who is so devoted to their child and has totally given up their life for their child to help take care of their illness, and then they become the hero.
Looking back, I can see that Hope just craved the attention, just ate it up.
I can't fathom how she ever kept up with all the lies. I don't know how she ever did, but she did.
These parents will go from doctor to doctor and hospital to hospital. So if one won't do what they want them to do, then they'll just go to somebody else. And they won't let the new facility or medical provider know about the prior one that wouldn't do the procedure.
I didn't know she was capable of this.
Once it was revealed that the daughter actually did not have cystic fibrosis, CPS put safety plans in place and basically barred Hope from having any contact with her daughter.
You can't leave the child in that situation where they're going to continue to be harmed. There is about a 6% chance of death in the child who is the victim if they're left in the home. So that's not inconsequential.
After Hope was removed from the house, the feeding tube was taken out. She can eat normal. She gained weight. Her attitude was better. Just overall, she improved 100%.
Ports had been removed. She wasn't on oxygen. All the medications had been removed. She was gaining weight, and she was going to school with regular kids.
It was within days. They opened an investigation on Hope.
CPS alerted the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. They checked the surveillance videos.
Hope had arrived in the middle of the night with a large handbag and left the facility rather quickly.
Welcome back to Something's Killing Me. I'm B.D. Wong. Medical child abusers are master manipulators who often possess knowledge of diseases and symptoms. They know how to lie to doctors, fabricate medical records, and even create symptoms that mimic real illnesses. And as hard as these cases are to detect, they're even harder to prosecute. Hope lied about her daughter having terminal cystic fibrosis, and she fooled not only her family, but her entire community. Was she also lying about her daughter's other ailments? Hope moves to Dallas while her criminal investigation is underway. Her 3 children stayed with their father, Fabian, in Fort Worth. Now, investigators have to find hard evidence that proves Hope had knowingly and deliberately caused life-threatening harm to her own daughter.
The case was referred to me in early April of 2009. While I was investigating this case, I had to comb through thousands of pages of medical records because this child had been in the hospital pretty much her whole life.
In medical child abuse, or Munchausen by proxy, it's very common for the caregiver to falsify past medical history. So they'll present the child as having a very complex past medical history or issues that really never occurred.
The daughter kept getting sick, respiratory infections and things like that. And whenever they would do these tests, they would find these bacteriums, these pathogens, that some of which are common in cystic fibrosis patients.
The theory of the case is that she introduced these pathogens through the nebulizer, through the breathing treatments that the victim took.
Well, as Mike's doing his investigation, obviously, one of the things he's looking into is Hope's access to these pathogens.
Hope had been supervisor of a food testing laboratory. One of the first steps in the investigation was to contact Hope's former employer.
I got a call from Mike Weber, and he asked me if I was willing to talk to him about a former employee. We became suspicious of Hope in actually stealing pathogens from the company when pathogens then disappeared.
And they had surveillance cameras at the lab, and they checked the surveillance videos.
And then we reviewed videotape and saw that Hope had arrived in the middle of the night with a large handbag and had come into the facility and left the facility rather quickly. We actually watched Hope take the organisms out of the incubator and put them into a handbag.
So I contacted Dr. Kaufman to see which of these pathogens had showed up in the victim. And as it turned out, 4 of the 9 pathogens she had access to through her employment had shown up in her daughter.
So it became clear that the way she was gaining access to these pathogens her daughter was later testing positive for was through her workplace.
We had no way to prove that she had administered the pathogen to her daughter. Hope confessed to doctoring a test with the pathogens. She was never going to confess to actually placing the pathogens into her daughter. In these type of criminal cases, we always look for additional evidence to build a more concrete case. And that's what I did in this case. After digging through a pile of evidence, we finally figured out that we had what we needed. We finally figured out what in those medical records could end this.
Investigators strongly suspect that Hope was stealing bacteria samples from her workplace and using them to make her daughter sick. But they need the evidence to prove it.
The problem with this case, like all medical child abuse cases, is there was no smoking gun. There was no video of Hope putting pathogens into her daughter. But one day we got a break. As Dr. Kaufman went through the records, she starts seeing these things. For instance, Hope presented the child to doctors as anemic, as having a history of anemia, before there was ever a documented history of anemia in a medical record.
So one of the many procedures that the daughter ended up having done was she had a portacath put in place, which is like a central line that goes directly into the vein that gives doctors and medical staff direct access to her blood.
Both for drawing blood as well as to put in antibiotics, different medications, things like that.
One of the things it indirectly did was it also gave Hope direct access to her daughter's blood. Within a month of having this put in place, the daughter suddenly began experiencing low iron levels, anemic episodes.
Well, the theory of the case is that Hope was removing blood from her daughter's portacath to cause the anemic episodes.
It's been estimated that at times she could have lost up to ½ a liter of blood. When Weber interviewed Hope, she denied intentionally bleeding her daughter. She did eventually admit that while she was cleaning out the port, she would take out a syringe of blood. So when the youngest daughter began experiencing these anemic fluctuations from going from high iron levels to low, at some point, Hope brings her into the hospital, and the girl is severely anemic at that moment. And they start them out with kind of a first low dose to see if they have any kind of allergic reaction, because there's a danger of going into anaphylactic shock through this procedure.
Hope had told that treating physician that the victim had had that procedure done in Dallas and she was not allergic.
Hope tells her, we're really in a hurry. She's had this procedure done several times before. There's no reason to go through the protocol. And this doctor said, I'm sorry, but this is how we have to do it.
Upon administering the IV iron treatment, the victim immediately went into anaphylactic shock.
They were able to deal with it quickly, but this can be a life-threatening allergic reaction.
Your airway becomes constricted, you can't breathe.
She could have died. I had no idea the severity of what was happening.
In these cases, the doctor is the weapon. So the parent is actually using the doctor as the weapon to harm their child with their medical procedures, with the IVs, with the lab draws. We have someone who's lied to us and made us do things that are harmful.
Once we figured out that Hope had bled her daughter and that had led to a near-death experience, that gave us the legal mechanism to charge Hope. As I was getting ready to get the arrest warrant, Hope was found unconscious in her apartment in Dallas.
And the doctors believed it was a serious brain injury, and from one of which she would probably never recover.
And they had a social worker contact me. I told the social worker, just call me if there's a miracle recovery. And 2 days later, she called me and said Hope was sitting up and talking, and the doctors were calling it a miracle. Upon release from the rehab hospital, she was arrested by the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office and transported to Tarrant County Jail.
With Hope behind bars, I didn't have to worry about the kids anymore. We're all safe.
Hope, what put you here in the first place?
The reason I'm here is because I allowed unnecessary medical procedures to be done to my daughter.
But how does it make you feel to know that you caused your daughter physical pain?
Hope eventually pled to 10 years in prison before trial.
It's kind of hard to admit that, you know, your daughter's in prison. That's not the person I raised her to be. It's not anything I ever would have imagined. But I felt almost relieved when Hope went to prison. I knew my granddaughter was safe. That was what was important.
Today, the kids and I are doing much, much better.
They're troopers. They're good kids, and I'm proud of them.
My youngest one, she's never stopped smiling. She's just a happy, happy kid after that. When you see her, you think nothing, this girl has lived a normal life. But you don't know, I mean, the half of it. What she's gone through, what she's been through.
first place?
The reason I'm here is because I allowed unnecessary medical procedures to be done to my daughter. Things that hurt her. I allowed surgeries to be done to her, 2 different surgeries. She had 1 surgery to have a portacath put in and 1 surgery to have a feeding tube put in. Neither one of those were needed. I'm be honest with you, a lot of this I don't remember. And some of it I'm sure that I've blocked out.
What did you take from the lab?
Bacteria.
And what did you do with that bacteria? Why did you take it?
Put it in my daughter.
So, Hope, you poisoned your own child.
I don't remember poisoning my own child.
You don't remember. You just told me you did.
That's how I said it probably would have been done. Some of the things I don't remember is because I've developed diabetes and been in several diabetic comas since then. I didn't have diabetes as a child or growing up or any time during this. I slipped into my first diabetic coma after all this started.
There are indications that Hope is continuing to make up illnesses while in prison.
I have epilepsy, I have diabetes, and I'm hearing impaired.
You claim to be hard of hearing or fully deaf. Which one is it?
Deaf.
But Hope, there were times that I've looked down and talked to you
Yes, sir.
when you couldn't see my lips and you heard my questions.
Every time that you've looked down, I was able to see your lip.
I spoke with a speech pathologist at her jail. Hope was coming to her classes, pretending to be deaf and using her own version of sign language.
Her mother said that Hope had pulled the same thing on her and her husband during one of their visits to the prison to see her. Her father basically told her to cut the crap or they were going to be leaving.
What I saw was the same person that I saw leave for prison. And that was a person that was still fabricating, that was still playing a game. At one point, we gave her an option that she could either quit playing or we were walking. And amazingly, her speech cleared right up. So we told her if that's what she chose to do with the time with us, that we wouldn't be back. And she did it one last time about 3 years ago.
How does it make you feel to know that you caused your daughter physical pain?
Like a monster. Like a terrible, terrible mother. Because I was trying to get the attention. I was being selfish. And she's the one that suffered. And in the end, everybody, my entire family suffered.
What's the worst way you have hurt your family? What was the worst lie you told?
That there was no treatment for the cancer I had. That I had the cancer and that there was no treatment for it. That I was gonna die.
Why did you make that up?
I'm not sure. I really think I was seeking attention.
When you had these big parties and there were hundreds of people there, I mean, what did that attention feel like?
I feel like I'm accepted. Like I was loved. Me, honestly, I think everybody on this planet needs that. Nobody wants to feel like an outcast.
Hope and Fabian did ultimately get a divorce while she was in prison.
She never apologized for what she did, but she did say she was sick. She didn't mean to do it.
I don't regret the fact that the man I love more than anything in my life divorced me. I deserve that. I don't regret the fact that I haven't heard from my kids in a very long time because he separated communication, because I deserve that. My biggest regret over all of that is that I hurt them. I hurt all of them.
You're braver than we are.
I don't think to this day she's ever told me the truth.
I cannot fathom ever being able to trust her again. The pain runs too deep. What do I want to see her? Do I want to hold her? Sure. She's my daughter. Always love her. But I can't let her hurt me like that again. I won't.
She's still our daughter, and I, she'll always have a place in my heart. It just won't be as comfortable, I think, moving forward.
What do you plan to do when you get out?
First thing I'd probably do is try to find out where my mother and father are. Try to show them that I've changed. And then try to find my children. And do the same thing with them. Be honest with them, tell them what I did, just like this interview. Why I think I did it, why it was wrong.
Tell me why they should believe you.
They shouldn't, just like you shouldn't, because nobody should believe me.
According to experts, very few perpetrators of Munchausen syndrome by proxy or medical child abuse ever admit to their crimes. But there are warning signs. When a child suffers from a pattern of symptoms that don't fit any disease or match any test results, and those symptoms suddenly improve when the child is away from their suspected abuser, that could be a red flag. There are no definitive statistics that point to how often medical child abuse occurs, but one thing most legal and healthcare professionals agree upon: it is far more widespread than is commonly believed, and more often than not, goes undetected. I'm B.D. Wong. Thanks for watching. Good night.